everyone, this is Allison from the Haltom City Public Library. Now weekly we're going to be doing story times for Aspire. This week we're going to do Native American stories. We're going to start off with Legend of the Indian Paintbrush. And at the end of the program you'll be able to make an activity which is a dream catcher. And your teachers have all the supplies for that. Many years ago when the people traveled the plains and lived in circle teepees, there was a boy who was smaller than the rest of the children in the tribe. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't keep up with the other boys, who were always riding, running, shooting their bows, and wrestling to prove their strength. Sometimes his mother and father worried for him. But the boy, who was called Little Gopher, was not without a gift of his own. From a very early age, he made toy warriors from scraps of leather and pieces of wood, and he loved to decorate smooth stones with the red juices from berries he found in the hills. The wise shaman of the tribe understood that Little Gopher had a gift that was special. Do not struggle, Little Gopher. Your path will not be the same as the others. They will grow to be warriors. Your place among the people will be remembered for a different reason. And in a few years, Little Gopher was older. He went out to the hills alone to think about becoming a man, for this was the custom of the tribe. It was there that a dream vision came to him. The sky filled with clouds, and out of them came a young Indian maiden and an old grandfather. She carried a rolled up animal skin, and he carried a brush made of fine animal hairs and pots of paint. The grandfather spoke, "My son, these are the tools by which you shall become great among your people. You will paint pictures of the deeds of the warriors and the visions of the shaman, and the people shall see them and remember them forever." The maiden unrolled a pure white buckskin and placed it on the ground. "Find a buckskin as white as this," she told him. "Keep it, and one day you will paint a picture as pure as the colors of the evening sky." As she finished speaking, the clouds cleared and a sunset of great beauty filled the sky. Little Gopher looked at the white buckskin, and on it he saw colors as bright and beautiful as those made by the setting sun. Then the sun sank slowly in the hills. The sky grew dark, and the dream vision was over. Little Gopher returned to the circle of the people. The next day he began to make soft brushes from the hairs of different animals and stiff brushes from the hairs of the horses' tails. He gathered berries and flowers and rocks of different colors and crushed them to make his paints. He collected the skins of animals which the warriors brought home from their hunts. He stretched the skins on wooden frames and pulled them until they were tight. And he began to paint pictures of great hunts, of great deeds, of the great dream visions, so the people would always remember. But even as he painted, Little Gopher sometimes longed to put aside the brushes and ride out with the warriors, but he always remembered his dream vision, and he did not go with them. Many months ago, he found his pure white buckskin, but it remained empty because he could not find the colors of the sunset. He used the brightest flowers and reddest berries and the deepest purples from the rocks, and still his paintings never satisfied him. They looked dull and dark. He began to go to the top of the hill each evening and look at the colors that filled the sky and try to understand how to make them. He longed to share the beauty of his dream vision with the people. But he never gave up trying, and every morning when he awoke, he took out his brushes and his pots of paint and created the stories of the people with the tools he had. One night as he lay awake, he heard a voice calling him. "Because you have been faithful to the people and your true gift, you shall find the colors you're seeking. Tomorrow take the white buckskin and go to the place where you watch the sun in the evening, and there on the ground you will find what you need." The next morning the sun began to go down, and the Little Gopher put aside his brushes, and he went to the top of the hill. The colors of the sunset spread across the sky, and there on the ground all around him were the brushes filled with paint, each one a color of the sunset. Little Gopher began to paint quickly and surely, using one brush, then another. And as the colors in the sky began to fade, Little Gopher gazed at the white buckskin, and he was happy. He had found the colors of the sunset, and he carried his painting down to the circle of the people, leaving the brushes on the hillside. The next day when the people awoke, the hill was ablaze with color, for the brushes had taken root in the earth and multiplied into plants of brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows. And every spring from that time, the hills and meadows burst into bloom. And every spring, the people danced and sang the praises of Little Gopher, who painted for the people. And the people no longer called him Little Gopher, but he who brought the sunset to earth. And at the back, there's an author's note that explains about the legend of the Indian paintbrush. Let's go ahead and do one more. Let's do Legend of the Bluebonnet. Great spirits, the land is dying. Your people are dying too, the long line of dancers sang. Tell us what we have done to anger you. In this drought, save your people. Tell us what we must do so you will send the rain that will bring back life. For 3 days, the dancers danced to the sound of the drums, and for 3 days, the people called Comanche, watched and waited. And even though the hard winter was over, no healing rains came. Drought and famine were hardest on every young and the very old. Among the few children left, there was a small girl named She Who Is Alone. She sat by herself watching the dancers. In her lap was a doll made from buckskin, a warrior doll. The eyes, nose, and mouth were painted on with the juices of berries. It wore beaded leggings and a belt of polished stone. On its head were brilliant blue feathers from the bird who cries, Jay, Jay, Jay. She loved her doll very much. Soon, She Who Is Alone said to her doll, the shaman will go off alone to the top of the hill and listen for the words of the great spirits. Then we will know what to do once more. The rains will come, and the earth will be green and alive. The buffalo will be plentiful, and the people will be rich again. As she talked, she thought of the mother who made the doll, the father who brought the blue feathers. She thought of the grandfather and grandmother who she had never known. They were all like shadows. It seemed so long ago that they had died from the famine. The people had named her and cared for her, and the warrior doll was the only thing she had left from those distant days. The sun is setting, the runner called as he ran through the camp. The shaman is returning. The people gathered in a circle, and the shaman spoke. I have heard the words of the great spirits, he said. The people have become selfish. For years they have taken from the earth without giving anything back. The great spirits say the people must sacrifice. We must make a burnt offering of the most valued possessions among us. The ashes of this offering shall then be scattered to the 4 points of the earth, the home of the winds. Then the sacrifice is made, the drought and famine will cease. Life will be restored to the earth and to the people. The people sang a song of thanks to the great spirits, telling them what they must do. I'm sure it is not my new bow that the great spirits want, a warrior said, or my special blanket, a woman added, as everyone went to their teepees and talked and thought over what the great spirits had asked. Everyone, that is, except She Who Is Alone. She held her doll tightly to her heart. You, she said, looking at the doll, you are my most valued possession, and it is you that the great spirits want, and she knew what she must do. As the council fires died out and the teepee flaps began to close, the small girl returned to the teepee where she slept to wait. The night outside was still, except for a distant sound of the night bird with the red wings. Soon everyone in the teepee was asleep, except She Who Is Alone. Under the ashes of the teepee fire, one stick still glowed, and she took it and quietly crept into the night. She ran to the place at the top of the hill where the great spirits had spoken to the shaman. Stars filled the sky, but there was no moon. Oh, great spirits, said She Who Is Alone. Oh, my light went out. Let me bring it back. Isn't that hilarious? Sometimes that happens. Let's start back over with this page. She ran to the place on the hill where the great spirits had spoken to the shaman. The stars filled the sky, but there was still no moon. Oh, great spirits, She Who Is Alone said. Here is my warrior doll, the only thing I have from my family who died in this famine. It is my most valued possession. Please accept it. Then, gathering twigs, she started a fire with a glowing fire stick. The small girl watched as the twigs began to catch and burn. She thought of her grandmother and grandfather, her mother and father, and all the people, their suffering and their hunger. And before she could change her mind, she thrust the doll into the fire. She watched until the flames died down and the ashes had grown cold. Then, scooping up a handful, She Who Was Alone scattered the ashes to the home of the winds, the north, the south, the east, and the west. And there she fell asleep until the first light of the morning sun woke her. She looked out over the hill, and stretching out from all sides where the ashes had fallen, the ground was covered with flowers, beautiful flowers, as blue as the feathers of the hair of the doll, as blue as the feathers of the bird who cries, Jay, Jay, Jay. When the people came out of their teepees, they could scarcely believe their eyes. They gathered on the hill with She Who Was Alone and looked at the miraculous sight. There was no doubt about it. The flowers were a sign of forgiveness from the great spirits. As the people sang and danced their thanks to the great spirits, a warm rain began to fall, and the land became alive again. And from that day on, the little girl who was known by another name, one who is dearly loved by her people. And every spring, the great spirits remember the sacrifice of the little girl and fill the hills and valleys and land, now called Texas, with the beautiful blue flowers, even to this very day. And at the end of this book is also an author's note about the legend of the bluebonnet. And we all know here in Texas, bluebonnet is our state flower, so go out and see if you can find some. Now, when you look at your teachers, they should have a craft for you, okay? So you're going to make dream catchers. You're going to make them out of the paper plates and out of some strings and some beads, okay? You guys have a great day, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.